Most people think World War II saved the American economy. But what if I told you the real story is more complicated, that the United States didn't escape the Great Depression? It transformed it into something else entirely. Because hidden in the ruins of the 1929 crash was an economic strategy so extreme, so unthinkable at the time, that it would reshape the world, create a permanent war economy, and turn the United States into a global superpower. Today we're pulling apart the story you think you know, from the Wall Street boom that was never sustainable, to the controversial policies that didn't work as planned, to the industrial machine that turned warfare into a business model. This is the Great Depression to World War II, how America's economy was rebuilt from ruin. And by the end of this video, the question won't be, how did America recover? It will be, did the US ever actually recover at all? Before the crash, America looked unstoppable. The 1920s were electric, record stock prices rising, consumer credit, skyrocketing industrial output, a booming middle class at least on the surface, but underneath. The economy wasn't growing, it was inflating. America's prosperity wasn't built on production or wages, it was built on debt, speculation, and a belief that markets only rise. Between 1921 and 1929, the value of US stocks increased by over 300%, not because companies were 3 times more productive, but because investors were borrowing to buy stocks on margin. At the height of the bubble, you could buy $100 of stock with just $10 of your own money. The rest, borrowed, gambling, hoping. And here's the critical twist most history books skip. The Federal Reserve, America's central bank, kept interest rates low, fueled speculation, and then suddenly tightened the money supply in 1928. The party didn't just run out of steam. It was engineered to stop. Why? That's still debated. Some say it was too slow inflation, others say it was an attempt to control speculation. But whatever the motive, the result was catastrophic. On October 29, 1929, the bubble burst. In a single day, $14 billion was erased from the economy. In a week, $30 billion, almost equal to the entire federal budget. Factories didn't close immediately, jobs didn't vanish overnight, but they were already disappearing. Remember, the stock market crash didn't cause the Great Depression. It revealed it. From 1929 to 1933, 9,000 banks failed, industrial output collapsed by 50%. Global trade fell by 65%, unemployment reached 25%, with some cities over 40%. America had entered a new reality. Money vanished, credit froze, confidence died. This wasn't a recession, it was a systemic breakdown. Banks failed because people panicked. People panicked because banks failed. A loop, a doom loop. President Herbert Hoover believed the economy would self-correct. His strategy, minimal intervention, balanced budgets, confidence will fix the problem. It didn't. Between 1930 and 1932, taxes were raised, public spending was cut, and businesses collapsed even faster. This is the economic trap. When incomes collapse, tax revenue collapses. When governments cut spending, the economy shrinks more. When the economy shrinks, unemployment rises. When unemployment rises, incomes collapse again. A cycle, a downward spiral. By 1933, the US economy had shrunk by nearly 30%. That's not a slowdown, that's extinction level for a modern nation. Franklin Delano Roosevelt arrived with the New Deal, a package of reforms that reshaped capitalism. Emergency bank relief, FDIC deposit guarantees, public works programs, social security, minimum wages, labor protections, economic stimulus. It restored confidences. It reduced unemployment. It saved capitalism, arguably. But here's the twist. It didn't end the Depression, even after dozens of programs, debt relief, and federal intervention. By 1939, 10 years after the crash, unemployment still hovered around 17%. The New Deal slowed the bleeding, it didn't heal the wound. As America struggled, the world moved toward conflict. Germany, Italy, and Japan militarized. Europe fractured. Global markets destabilized. Then came the question no one wanted to ask. If capitalism couldn't restart itself, what would? In 1941, the United States entered World War II. Within months, everything changed. Factories reopened. not for consumer goods, but for weapons. Unemployment fell to 1.2%, the lowest in US history. How? Because the government spent the equivalent of $5 trillion in today's money on one thing: war production. This wasn't a recovery. This was a full-scale reprogramming of the economy. The US government didn't just stimulate demand, it created demand. It replaced private spending with public spending. It replaced consumer markets with military contracts. For every Jeep built, a paycheck. For every bomb alone, for every life lost, an economic statistic. This is the uncomfortable truth. America didn't escape the Great Depression, it outproduced it. After the war, factories could have shut down, budgets could have fallen, spending could have normalized, but they didn't. Instead, the Cold War began. Defense spending became a permanent fixture. Military contracts became the backbone of American industry. Foreign bases became global infrastructure. In 1961, President Eisenhower warned that the US was becoming dependent on what he called the military-industrial complex, a system where war drives production, production drives profits, profits drive policy. In other words, war became the business model. Now we jump to the present. Why does this matter today? Because the patterns are repeating. 2008 financial crisis equals bank failures plus market collapse. Pandemic shutdowns equals supply chain collapse plus stimulus. Rising global tensions equals military spending spikes again. Here are the numbers that should make you uncomfortable. US national debt is now over $34 trillion. More than 40% of all US dollars in circulation were created after 2020. Defense spending is the largest category of discretionary spending in the budget. The US has 750 military bases outside its borders. Economic growth slows, gives military spending rises. Do you see it? The same economic engine that ended the Depression is still running. The United States built an economy where stability depends on credit expansion, dollar dominance, global military presence, controlled conflict. It's not a conspiracy. It's a structure, a system born from the ashes of 1929. So we return to the question we started with. Did the US really recover from the Great Depression, or did it replace the Depression with a permanently stimulated economy, where crisis is never solved, only redirected? Takeaway number 1. Economic collapse rarely comes from one event. It comes from imbalances that build over time until correction is unavoidable. Takeaway number 2. Government intervention can save an economy, but it always creates new dependencies, new weaknesses, and new risks. Takeaway number 3. War didn't fix the economy. It changed it. It created a world where economic strength and military power are now inseparable. If the US economy was rebuilt by war spending, what happens if the world ever truly chooses peace? What happens when the engine that drives prosperity no longer has fuel? Is America ready for a future where growth isn't built on conflict, or will history repeat itself? That is the question every nation must now face. If this video helped you see history with new eyes, hit like so YouTube knows this content matters. Comment your biggest question below. I read every single one. And subscribe for more deep investigations into history, economics, and the forces shaping our world. Until next time, stay curious, stay questioning, and never stop learning.